Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, indeed for waiting for us. Deepest apologies, technical issues, and all of that. We're so sorry, but we're here now, and there is scant time to waste. Our guest is Senator Shehu Sani, author, Pan-Africanist, human rights crusader, and he represented Kaduna Central in the 8th Senate. Good morning to you, Senator Shehu Sani.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for making time for us, and indeed, apologies to you personally for keeping you waiting. Technical problems and all of that. But here we are. We wanted to talk about grappling with the reality of subsidy removal. I mean, most people, by and large, have said that it's a thing that has to be done. But then there are realities. It's a bitter pill. It has to be taken. What, Senator, do you think will be those realities that are going to, as it were, confront us beyond hitting our wallet? These things sometimes have a sort of a knock-on effect. What do you think are those things that government and indeed the citizenry should pay attention to as necessary concomitants of the rise in the price of petrol, the removal of subsidy?
Thank you for having me in your program once again. Well, the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill was designed and passed to solve a lot of problems in the petroleum industry. And it has been able to solve so many problems. But what it has not solved was the issue of petroleum subsidy. And if I can remember, in the last 4 decades, that has been a contentious issue as far as our country is concerned, as far as the economy of our country is concerned. Every now and again, each time the previous government attempted to withdraw petroleum subsidy, there will be a natural response from the labor and civil society through protest, civil disobedience, and all sorts of campaign. I cannot recall how many number of protests are participating in support of petroleum subsidy. But the question we fail to ask ourselves for all these years is, can't we do without subsidy? Can't we do without billions of taxpayers' money being paid to anonymous persons in name of subsidy? Can't we rescue our economy? Can't we do things differently? Many governments in the past have tried, but they have failed. And they failed because of the fear of the social implication of such withdrawal, and also the fear of mass uprising and resistance that will come after such withdrawal. And it has happened. I have been a strong advocate of subsidy. But now, we need to tell ourselves the truth as a country. This subsidy started in millions, then in billions and hundreds of billions, and now it has hit trillions. And we have reached a point where we were told that the government even have to borrow to pay subsidy. And this is not something that is going to come to an end in the next 1, 2, 10, or 20 years. It appears that we have to continue to source for money to pay subsidy. Can't we build other ideas in such a way that we will get down prices to the level of the ordinary man and then end this subsidy regime? And I think this has been the argument this time around. Nigerians have woken up to this reality. 1.2 trillion or thereabout being removed from our national treasury to pay for subsidy in an oil-producing country like ours is untenable, unsustainable, and is wrong. And for me, I am now a strong advocate of the need to dialogue to solve the problem permanently. Because all the dialogue that has been in the past is how do we reduce the subsidy and continue the subsidy. But now we have to achieve two goals. One, end subsidy and see how we can bring down the prices of petroleum products. If it is a price that we have to pay temporarily, then there should be a target for it. I belong to a civil society that has always campaigned and supported subsidy. But we have reached a point in the history of our country that our economy cannot sustain it. And still people are wondering, if we have had functional refineries, if we have judiciously used our resources to build more refineries in the last 8 years, we couldn't have been talking about subsidy at this very time. If Nigerians have to suffer for being an oil producing and oil exporting country, what will have become of Nigeria if we don't have oil, if we don't have petroleum? What will have been the fate of our people? So I think the decisive moment is now. The last government of President Muhammad Buhari has failed to implement this, despite his own flip-flop. He has been a person, there was an attempt to do it, and then when there was threat of uprising and protest, he withdrew and even denied that he never made such thing, typical of what he does with power. So this time around, I think these historical issues, economic issues about subsidy need to be addressed. It's a fact our people are suffering. To fill your tank now, a typical saloon vehicle is about 40 to 50,000 naira. You to go from north and southern part of the country now, you need almost 100,000 naira, and this will reflect on the prices of commodities. But for us as a country, we have always been told, when I ask questions, who are the beneficiaries of these subsidies? They tell us oil marketers. Oil marketers, don't they have names? We need to know who are their names. I've never seen somebody who has come to the national television or been online and say, my name is Musa James Adeleke O Onoha, and that I am the beneficiary of this subsidy. So we can't continue to pay money to anonymous fraudsters, rent seekers, middlemen in the oil industry who have been benefiting and using the resistance of civil society to support for this subsidy for their own personal ends. As far as I'm concerned, our oil should be a blessing to Nigeria. It should be a benefit to our people. It should be one that will support life and also help our people. But it appears that we are suffering for having petroleum in our country. And I am fully in support of the dialogue process that is going now between the federal government, the NNPCL, and also the Nigeria Labour Congress. Until with a dialogue, we can come with a solution. During the Babangida regime, we were on the street protesting in support of subsidy. During the Abacha, many of us even went to court to challenge it. In the Jonathan administration, Obasanjo and Jonathan, we were all on the street fighting. But it appears this will be an endless thing. We will continue to do these things here, paying trillions to some persons who don't produce anything in the name of simply importing. This is an opportunity for us to get our refineries back in order, to build more, to refine our oil and provide it for our people, and end this culture of paying humongous amount of money to people whom we don't know what is their faces, who are their names, and where they are. So this is my take and my view on this.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much, Senator. Well, as you said, it's been quite difficult for the reasons that is confronting this fuel subsidy issue. As a matter of fact, there are many who say there is no subsidy, we were simply being ripped off. Well, this is not, we're not about to argue that, but that was the way some people felt. And it was a very delicate, something in the nature of a political hot potato. You just, said that the last administration sort of got cold feet on it. But now that it is done, subsidy has gone, and it has gone publicly, and it actually disappeared, shall we say, on the very day that President Tinubu was taking office, his oath of office. Now, it surely is an idea whose time had come. And so it was done, and people, thought that all sorts of things were going to happen. Not so. So, in fact, you now have people who are going to be, I don't want to call them victims, but who are going to have to, grapple with this, saying that, yep, it's going to be tough, but it's a thing that must be done. Now, I want to bring your mind, Senator, to the Nigerian citizens ourselves, because we've had it good for so long. We were, buying petrol at the price that we were buying it, and maybe we forgot ourselves a bit, and this has brought us into something of a shock reminder. Do you think there's a part for the citizens also, as government is doing all those things that you talked about? Indeed, they have said that they'll be intervening. The citizen itself has to now probably moderate his consumption, his or her consumption. We've heard about people who have 7, 8 limousines in the house. Not everybody does have that. But we were joking that maybe no more than 1 or 2 of those limousines shall now be on the road. But do you think there's somewhere where we can speak to the ordinary Nigerian himself who had grown up on the 190-something naira fuel that has now become almost 500 naira? So this is reality. Before, it was whatever it was. Is there a role for the Nigerian to moderate his awoof consumption?
Well, you see, if we are going to talk about this issue of subsidy, we also have to use this opportunity to address the problems in the energy sector. First of all, we must appreciate the fact that the petroleum industry bill has led to a new NNPC, which is NNPCL. And we have had a managing director in the person of Kerry, who has behaved and performed more than any other of his previous predecessors. Oil has been discovered in northern part of Nigeria, and there was a direct attempt, an effective attempt to end oil theft in Niger Delta. We have also seen a move towards accountability as far as the petroleum industry is concerned. That is a very big credit. But now on this issue of subsidy, as a layman, I've always asked myself, I'm not in the oil industry. We are importing petroleum product and government is subsidizing it. But the question I ask myself is, the price of an LG 52 inches TV in Lagos, in Asaba, in Owerri, is the same thing, the one in Sokoto, in Kano, Katsina, and Kaduna. And these products are imported. So who is subsidizing it? Why is the same LG 52 inches or Samsung or Sony in southern part of Nigeria is also the same thing in northern part of Nigeria? Who is subsidizing the prices of those things? But that is simply a layman thinking. But the question we have to ask ourselves, if you look at the amount of money that is paid to subsidy, can this money be invested in health, in education, in infrastructure, something physically people can see? Borrowing to pay subsidy is like you are borrowing to eat, because you will never stop eating, but you will stop borrowing when people stop giving you money. So that is a fact. The solution has to be found to it. The only thing that is important is that Nigerians have to be carried along, and there should be transparency in what is doing. If we have saved 2 trillion naira, let people see what this money will be used for in all the 36 states, including Abuja. Physical things they can see and they can benefit from. Whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's whatever, at least people can see that. As far as Nigerians are concerned, I know very well that the previous administration have set a booby drive. It's like a time bomb. It's not that this government has withdrawn subsidy, but the fact on the ground is that they have not inherited money to pay subsidy. The budget that was passed by the National Assembly never made provisions for payment of subsidy from now to the end of the year. If Buhari had the courage, the boldness, the political will, he would have removed subsidy over 2 years ago. But for political expediency and fear of uprising, he wasn't able to do it. Like so many other things in his government, he left it undone. But as far as Nigerians are concerned, I think it's not simply the poor man that should make sacrifices. Many things have happened in the previous administration. It is time for the new president of this country to also look at the money is being borrowed by Nigeria, over $40-something billion, and now it into about 77 trillion naira. How effectively was being used? There was suspicion that ministry, department, and agencies of government have looted and embezzled public funds in the last 8 years. Let's also recover those monies. Let not simply the poor man suffer. On subsidy removal, people should be carried along. And if you are not going to be given 10,000 for subsidy, let them see where this 10,000 naira is applied, and then they will say that the money is transferred from subsidy to your own personal development as far as you are concerned as a citizen. So asking Nigerians to moderate their lives, to restrict themselves to a certain lifestyle, is also one of cultural orientation and the need for us to address. We are not a rich country, and also we are not a poor country. We are not a rich country in the sense that our way of life as a nation does not reflect the economic reality of our country. Take, for example, in Abuja here, a rent costs as much as 15, 20, and 35 million naira, and we don't have any industry. We don't produce anything in Abuja other than simply the government is here and people can move around and loot and take contracts. So this is it. We have, when a typical Briton has a car or two,
I'm sorry to
a typical Nigerian has 10 or 20. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interject, Senator. Very sorry. But I must go on a break now. So we'll go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet, sour taste for all. Their demands, a familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News. Our planet.
Okay, welcome back, and our guest is Senator Shehu Sani. He's an author, Pan-Africanist, and human rights crusader. He was a senator in the National Assembly, the 8th Senate, and he represented Kaduna Central. Thank you very much, Senator Shehu Sani, for being with us. Okay, just before we went on break, I was wanting you to look at what the ordinary citizen could do, and indeed you had started on that. Let me go to the flip side of that coin. As a way to maybe save all that needs to be saved in these times, I wonder what you think of the cost of governance or government. Oftentimes in other political jurisdictions. We hear in America, for instance, that the political parties are suing for a reduction in the size of government. It's too much, it's too large, it's costing us too much. Do you think, is there any opportunity there? You might have a better understanding of the size of government in Nigeria. Is there any hope there that things could be reduced and as a result cause savings?
This is a historic opportunity for Nigeria. Since the return of democracy in 1999, this is a time you had a president who was once a senator and also now a state governor and also now a president of a country, and also one who has been through the trenches in the struggle for democracy. So I believe these are enough credentials for someone who has been an advocate of restructuring and reducing the cost of governance to practicalize all that he has been struggling for and all that represented his own ideal. Cutting the cost of governance should begin with implementing the Oransai report. When you have 800 ministries, departments, and agencies of federal government, and you have a bloated civil service of over 1 million, you have a problem. So the need to implement that report will be the beginning of reducing the cost of governance. And then secondly, why must it be that every state must have a minister? And if you have 20 ministries at the federal level, and then all states must have ministers, you will have over 40-something ministries. And this is what brought the idea of this illegality called Minister of State. And if the president will get it right this time around, there should be the reduction of the number of ministers, like that of ministries. It's very important. And some agencies of government need to be merged. And as far as the National Assembly is concerned, even when I was at the National Assembly, I am a strong advocate of reducing the cost of governance and the need to address the finances of the National Assembly is very important. I happen to be the first legislature in Nigeria that has come public in terms of announcing how much we earn as salary, allowances, and running costs, which was before treated in secrecy, and I had to unveil it for people to know and bring an end to it. That needs to be done. And the person of the president himself, there is a need for that. Ministers move around with 10, 15 vehicles, with all sorts of staffs that are not necessary. This is very important. The last president has promised to cut even the presidential fleet, which he has not done, like other things which he hasn't. So as far as I'm concerned, doing the right thing is now when the government is just coming to office. If we allow it for tomorrow and next tomorrow, we will still be going back. And then you have a new leader who wants to advance this country. One thing he should do is appoint people that are competent and capable and that have the vision and ideas to do things differently. All these appeasement and pleasing entitled politicians should come to an end. There are people who said they voted him because of his nationalism and patriotism. Some say they voted him to respect the principle of rotation of power. If you know very well that you have supported and worked for him to win in the interest of Nigeria, then you must not move around as an entitled person. You must be given an appointment. If the government is run by pleasing and appeasing politicians, then nothing else will be achieved. This is what became of President Obasanjo's government from 2003 to 1999 to 2003. Politicians that have no knowledge, no capacity, no competence have been appointed. We have had a minister in the last administration said when he was appointed into office He doesn't know anything about that administration. Now, that is not his fault. It's the fault of the president of the country at that very time. This president has a very decisive in terms of addressing Nigeria's challenges. We're a nation of almost 220 million people, and they need to have capable hands that will get Nigeria working and that will take us to a new level of advancement politically, socially, economically. I think it is what is needed now. Doesn't mean if you have worked for the president and you come from his party and then he must appoint you into office. He has a choice to make. Either you want to be a great politician who has appeased and pleased people, or you want to be remembered as a statesman who has moved this country to the position of Singapore, Malaysia. You want to be Mahathir Mohamad, Lee Kuan Yew, or General Park of South Korea. These are the choices you have. Or you want to be a typical president we have in this continent who are simply transactional. The question is with him. Every second counts for Nigeria, and the time to get it is now. As far as I'm concerned, the priority of this government for now should be security and economy. Getting people with the knowledge, with the experience of heading security agencies and serving as defense chiefs to address the security challenges of this our country is very important now. In the past, we have had an economic team, an economic council, that nobody knows who they are and what they have done, what they even stand for. One economic policy overrides another, and then we all depend on what the CBN governor says or do. And he only takes his file to the president. This government must be different. And I believe all his experience as a man who came from the trenches, being a senator, being a governor, being a politician that has produced leaders, should be the last point in which Nigeria will benefit from it here. Agriculture should be headed by people who know what is agriculture. Defense should be by people who know what is defense. There's something with works and power, and not simply dispense favor to someone from Kaduna, Kano, Sokoto, simply because they have worked for you, and as such, you just put them there. If you succeed, it is you. If you fail, it is you. It's not about them. So I think this is my own take as far as the future and the next step that need to be taken. Yes.
Indeed. And I'm still thinking about areas to cut costs, because well, the way Nigeria carries on, if you were to watch public or official or governmental events, it doesn't look, you just said we're not rich, but then we're not poor either. You look at it, you get the impression that it's a rich country. When you look at the whole paraphernalia, in terms of perception, these people don't have a problem. You can't blame any foreigner for saying. Yet we were told by people who know about these things that over 90%, of our revenues was going into debt servicing. Surely we can't continue with that. So my mind then went to another cost center in Nigeria, the National Assembly, your former house. As you know, those guys, people have complained, live like, or are paid like royal sheikhs. Maybe they're exaggerating it a bit there, but I have heard it said that the Nigerian legislator is among the most highly paid anywhere in the world. Is it going to be tumultuous to begin to look for areas of savings, even when it comes to politicians themselves? Because that's one of the reasons why people take getting elected into office as a do-or-die affair. Because once you get there, hey, you're on easy street, it needs to be said.
Yeah, well, I will state it this way. We are not aspiring as a country to be like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and South Korea. We behave like Qatar like Kuwait, like these oil Gulf countries. We have Gulf money, and as such, our behavior should be in line with that natural wealth in our country. But what you need to see as a country is that every person who parades himself as a rich man in Nigeria has thousands of poverty-stricken relations, which shows that we are not a rich country. We live a life of self-deception and falsehood. In Abuja and Lagos, you have schools that charge secondary school fees up to 5, 10, 20, 30 million naira for a session. We are not as rich as that. Let's be frank with ourselves. And at the end of the day, they write either common interest or they write the same WAEC. This is a country, according to the recent statistic, 300 million Nigerians have properties in Dubai, that is $152 billion. 300 million Nigerians have property in Dubai worth $152 billion. What is our own foreign reserve now? It's about $40 to $41 billion. What is our national and foreign debt? It's about 77 trillion naira. So you can see that Nigeria is not a poor country in the sense that if we judiciously use our resources and equitably spread it to address the problem of poverty, which now rises about 133 million people who are poor. The National Assembly is one section. There are things, if you need to address them, there must be constitutional changes. First of all, there is no reason to have a Senate and a House of Representatives because we perform the same function. We raise motion, we raise bills, we perform oversight function. The difference between the Senate and the House of Reps is that we confirm appointments in the Senate and they don't do. The President writes to the Senate the list of his own nominees as ministers, as head of MDAs, and the Senate confirms it. That is what only the reps don't do. So if we are going to cut the cost of governance, those things has to be done. But it's going to come with a very serious challenge, and it falls on the line of the general restructuring of the country. If this president wants to solve these problems once and for all, then we must bring the restructuring agenda to the table and look at it. All the conferences report that has happened in 2014, the ones done before it, sit down, select those that are necessary, and then we implement it. As far as Nigeria is concerned, there are decisions which, if you attempt to take, will come with far greater political consequences than even the one of withdrawal of subsidy. For example, you can restructure the country and cut the cost of governance when you have 36 states with 36 House of Assemblies and 36 groups of commissioners in all the states, and then you say you want to cut the cost of governance. So if you add some states to march back to where they were, nobody is going to return back to what it used to be 2-3 decades ago. If you go to the National Assembly and tell them that you want to reduce the running cost and so many things, there you're going to face a very stiff opposition, and most likely most of your bills will not be passed.
But I can imagine.
It is the waste. It's all this has to be supposed to have been done in 2015. The APC is the ruling party, but all the crisis begins and ends with the APC. If you see any crisis at the national level, it's mostly, if it happens in opposition party, it simply ends at the peripheral. But that of the APC has impact on governance and in the whole country. So it's like just like who is going to be the Senate president of this country. The problem is in the APC. There is Akpabio, there is YORI. So it's not that there is someone from PDP or Labour. So it's all for them to decide on what to do, and this is the time to do it. If you want to cut the cost of governance, you have to do it from the executive level, and then do it from the legislative level, and do it also from the judicial level, and do it at the state level. But the president has to start from himself by showing that example, and by that it can then move and trickle down to all other segments and organs of government. Indeed.
Hopefully the angels are listening as well. A little joke in there. Now, maybe we've almost run out of time, but you spend the few minutes we have left. You spoke about some of the things that were almost indispensable that the last administration did not do. So here we are. We've got to carry on. We've got to get on with it. Corruption is what I'm talking about. We heard before the last administration came on board that they wouldn't care whose ox would be gored, wouldn't care who's stepping on the toes and all of that. I suspect that there's a heck of a leak as a result of corruption. How doable? Because you've just told me that, look, if you go certain ways, there might be certain repercussions in terms of governance, reducing the size of governance. How about corruption? We just have to have a very, very dim view of corruption. But if that is not the case, I'm afraid that those leakages might continue. What are your thoughts in that regard, confronting corruption with a view to ameliorating the pains that we now must necessarily face as a result of the removal of subsidy?
Well, on the issue of subsidy, before we go to that, in short name, the subsidy cartel is a very strong gang of people that always blackmail the country. Each time there is a statement, they increase the price of fuel and makes people suffer, and also encourage, incite, and promote dissent to defend their interests, which many of us have done so blindly. I have been defending subsidy, but I've never met the recipient of that subsidy for one day. And I have asked my colleagues, please, who are these people who are benefiting from subsidy? They say they are marketers. I said, don't they have names? So that aspect of it. Second, the last administration has failed to fight corruption. In fact, the ministries, department, and agency were indicted by Auditor General report, as many of them don't remit money that's supposed to be remitted to government, and people simply carry on and presided over a regime of larceny and waste for the past 8 years. The last president kept ministers for 8 years in office despite their clear failure, unambiguous failure in government, and as if he doesn't know anybody in the country. There was no serious cabinet reshuffle. There were people who are heading department and agencies whose tenures were illegally extended by the last administration, and to a certain point that the nation's debt piled up, and people were told not to look at the debt.
Well, I'm sorry, Senator, we've completely run out of time. I really am sorry, we've run out of time, but what you're implying is that those things certainly need to be dealt with in this administration, if I'm not wrong. That's what you're implying.
Certainly.
And, yes.
I'm so happy that the president said he's going to toe the line of Umaru, and by that statement, he has made it clear that that is where governance is supposed to take root, and not the one he has inherited.
Thank you very much, Senator Shehu Sani, for coming on our program today. Once again, apologies for keeping you waiting, and indeed all our viewers as well. Apologies for that late start. Most out of character, I would like to say. Okay, so that's our program today. Please join us on Monday for a fresh edition. I am YORI FOLARIN. Bye-bye for now.
Following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Do you spend the night trying to get comfortable? Your knees rub bone on bone. Your back and hips ache. You wake up in pain? Not anymore. ShopX TV is proud to introduce the Contour Legacy Pillow, the patented, ergonomically designed tapered leg pillow that naturally fits the contours of your legs, knees, and thighs to help align your spine and alleviate pain. Watch, when you sleep on your side, your leg falls forward, twisting your pelvis and lower back, putting pressure on your spine, hip, and sciatic. But the Contour Legacy Pillow cushions your knees and cradles your legs,